Hello and welcome Woodrow Wilson friends, family, and students. This is Ms. Fields here, and I am joining you for our 18th episode of Math Toolbox. Tonight we're going to be looking at how to accurately divide mixed numbers by fractions. As I stated before in previous instructional videos, mixed numbers are a part of life in fraction land here in 5th grade, and so this is a skill. Converting them to fractions greater than 1 and then back into mixed numbers is something that's never going to go away. And so, as I said before, mixed numbers, they're going to be in all operations, so we will be using a mixed number today in order to determine what our quotient is. As I stated before, many of our mathematical problems are going to be embedded in some type of word problem because math is most importantly going to help us in life whenever it is in some kind of context. So let's find out what we're doing today. So in our problem it says Mrs. Christensen has 5 3/4 pie left after her Valentine's Day party. Before she stores them into the fridge, she wants to cut all of the remaining pies equally into 1/2 size pieces. How many half-size pieces will she have? So immediately in my mind, I'm thinking UKT, units, keywords, total, and also I'm writing down on my piece of scratch paper a foursquare in order to organize my work. And it looks something like this. In the top left corner, we have our word problem analysis strategy, UKT. Top right corner, we've got find a common denominator, which in subsequent slides we'll see that is X'd out because we're dividing. Bottom left corner we have our solve, and then in the bottom right corner we are stating our solution and answering the problem. Now, even though for this instructional video we know that we're dividing, if we were to encounter this problem just in a normal everyday scenario when we're doing problems in the classroom, we wouldn't know what operation it is. However, we do know what the fractions are, which is 5 3/4, as well as 1/2. So notice the spot right here is blank. We don't know what the operation is. We need to analyze the units, keywords, and total in order to figure that out. So let's go back to the problem. I know that our units are usually after the type of number that we're focusing on in our problem. The first number is 5 3/4, and I see that associated with that number is pies. So 5 3/4 pies are left after Mrs. Christensen's Valentine's Day party. So that's what we know that we're going to be dividing up. Looking over here, it says half-size pieces. That looks to me like that's going to be the size of the pieces that they're going to be cut up into, and pieces is our other unit. So on my foursquare, I'm writing down pies and pieces. Now I see immediately that our units did not match up, so I know that I can eliminate addition or subtraction. So as I'm looking at keywords, if I see any words that are associated with addition or subtraction, I know that they're not going to be giving us hints that that's the operation that we're going to use. We need to look a little bit deeper. So first I identified my units, now I'm looking at my keywords. The two keywords that are pointing me immediately to division are cut, as well as equally. Because not only are we cutting the things up, we're cutting them into equal portions, specifically half-size portions. Now, pretending like after finding out my units, determining my keywords, looking at our total, do we know our total? We absolutely do. Our total is 5 3/4, the number of pies, and that's what we're going to be dividing equally into half-size pieces into the fridge before she puts them away. So we do know our total. That being said, we know that our operation that we will be using is division. Now notice up here, I crossed out my find a common denominator section of my foursquare because I know that anytime I multiply or I divide fractions, that I do not need to find a common denominator. Next portion in solving is I cannot start solving to divide without converting my mixed number into a fraction greater than 1. Now, if this is something that is challenging for you, I really encourage you to go look at the previous instructional videos on how to change a fraction that is mixed into a fraction greater than 1 and then back again. Now I'm just going to quickly go through this. I know that when I'm changing a mixed number into a fraction greater than 1, I multiply my denominator by the whole, and that would be 5 times 4, which is 20. And then the last step is that you add in that numerator. So we've got 20 so far. 20 plus 3 is 23. And so we know that our fraction greater than 1 is 23 over 4. Then we know that we need to do something about our division sign and our 1/2 over here. And that's going to be in the next step. So 23/4 is our fraction greater than 1. This is our division problem as a whole. We flipped our fraction. However, we need to change that division sign into a multiplication sign. And I posted earlier on our Facebook the Keep, Change, Flip song to help you remember the steps in dividing fractions. So when we divide by fractions, our tip is to keep, so keep this first fraction the same, change the division sign into a multiplication sign, and then flip. Change the 1/2 into 2 over 1. So our numerator becomes our denominator, and our denominator becomes our numerator. Next step is we multiply across the top in order to determine what our quotient is. After multiplying 23 times 2, we should get 26. 4 times 1 is 4. And I said quotient because our problem is a division problem. However, in order to solve a division problem for fractions, you do have to multiply. So technically this would appear to be our product. However, it will be giving us our quotient for the problem. That being said, our fraction greater than 1 is 46/4. However, in 5th grade, our mathematicians are expected to convert fractions greater than 1 into mixed numbers. We know that every fraction is a division problem. So in order to change that fraction greater than 1 into a mixed number, we need to divide. Now, as I said in previous instructional videos, we've got 4 steps to our division process. First step is to divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. We're going to look at our first digit here, and that is 4. How many groups can we take away from 4? We can take away exactly 1. That's our first step. We divided. Now we need to multiply. 4 times 1. We know 4 times 1 is 4. Next step is subtract. 4 minus 4 is 0. Last step is bring down. So far in our quotient, we've got 1. And in order to round this thing out and to find out what our final quotient is, we need to find out how many groups of 4 can be taken away from 6. I know 1 group of 4 can be taken away from 6. That's our first step, is to divide. Next step, we need to multiply. 4 times 1. We get 4. Last step is to subtract. 6 minus 4 is 2. And we see that we have a remainder here. We don't have any more numbers to bring down. Now, one thing that I do to kind of keep my work organized and to make sure that I don't get confused about what the denominator is that whenever I'm changing a fraction greater than 1 into a mixed number, I make sure I put my divisor over here as the denominator. A lot of 5th graders forget which part of the fraction is their denominator, especially in a division problem. So I know that my divisor is always my denominator, so I immediately put that down there in the denominator. Last step is to put the remainder into the numerator, because that's what makes the top part of our fraction in our mixed number when we're changing fractions greater than 1 into mixed numbers. However, I know that 11 and 2/4 is equal to 11 1/2. Now this is something that we haven't gone into simplifying fractions, but just for your own knowledge, sometimes fractions can be reduced in their appearance. It doesn't change the value, but it changes the appearance of the numerator and the denominator. 1/2 is a simplified version of 2/4. So I want to make sure that you guys are noticing that. Going back to the previous slide, we want to be able to answer what our question is. Now going back, we were talking about Mrs. Christensen, we were talking about pies. It looks to me like we need to answer the question, how many half-size pieces of pies will she have? Using our new simplified fraction as our answer, we know that Mrs. Christensen will be able to cut up 11 1/2 half-size pieces of pie and put them in her fridge for her dessert for later. Thank you so much for joining me tonight for our 18th episode of Math Toolbox. If any of these concepts are still confusing for you, I highly encourage you to go check out the other instructional videos, especially on changing mixed numbers into fractions greater than 1 and back again. If you have any questions, please talk to me in person, and I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.